We're going through a report, Anthropic Threat Intel report, August 2025. The first one, the most interesting one, was the biohacking one. That was used for data extortion, which is kind of different to data exfiltration.
By using AI to build the strategy and the negotiation tactics between the attacker and the victim, AI helps you write the message, tell you exactly how much you should ask for.
You're not even talking to the real person. You're just talking to Claude Code in the background.
This represents a new paradigm where technical competence is simulated rather than possessed. Yet, they're successfully maintaining employment at Fortune 500 companies.
If you're wondering what kind of real AI attacks exist, Anthropic was kind enough to release their AI Threat Intelligence Report in August 2025. Caleb and I went through that report in this particular episode with 10 case studies that were shared, and the difference is remarkable. Some of the case studies showed people could not even speak English as a language. Some of them were Russian, Spanish, and otherwise were building malware, ransomware, other kind of capabilities to have an impact, either positive or negative, on Fortune 500 companies or different industries across the globe. This episode is for you if you are curious to know more about the case studies. I'll leave a link for the case study in the description and the comment as well, so you get to read the entire report. In this episode, we also spoke about the surprising things we found in the report, and based on what we are hearing from other CISOs and companies across the globe on how much AI is being used and what kind of AI security is being done, what are some of the gaps that are existing today, and how far are we truly from some of these attacks being done at scale. Again, shout out to Anthropic for creating a report, probably the first of its kind. I'm hoping OpenAI and other companies can start coming out of these as well for the threats that they see their AI being misused for. Probably Amazon and AWS as well, if you folks are listening in. But if you know someone else who's interested in threat intel reports on how AI could be used for malicious purposes, definitely share this episode with them. And if you have been listening or watching an AI security podcast episode for a second or third time, I would really appreciate if you can quickly check that you have subscribed to us on Apple or Spotify, if that's where you're listening to this, or YouTube or LinkedIn, if that's where you're watching these episodes. Your support means a lot. It's a free thing you can do to check that right now. And if you haven't, please hit the subscribe, follow button in whatever platform you're listening or watching this on. It means a lot that you support the work we do, and also means that we get to be discovered by many more people like you as well. Thank you so much for your support. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll talk to you soon. The first one, I think for me, the most interesting one, the one that definitely was the biohacking one, where it was more about someone was able to penetrate into many industries specifically. I mean, they went across not the big enterprise giants, they went for things like your churches, your healthcare, government, emergency service, and they were basically using Claude Code. Oh, actually, yeah. So for context, every attack that was mentioned or every case study that was mentioned in the report uses Claude Code in some way, shape, or form.
This is an Anthropic report, so...
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we don't know are there any other versions that are out there, because OpenAI doesn't have a copy like this yet. So maybe this encourages them to come up with a report. So it's what was fascinating for me in that vibe hacking one was, I think they're trying to categorize it. I think they want to make it a regular thing, but it basically, the one example that was called out, and this is part of the video that was shared as well, is that they basically were jailbreaking Claude Code to pretend to be network pen testers, going through VPNs that were available, publicly accessible VPNs that were available from these specific industries that traditionally are not known to have huge security, I guess, from a capability perspective. And they were brute force their way through it, do a lateral movement across the org structure to figure out where's the sensitive data. Like, for example, in the case of the church, they found the list of donors, how much money and their addresses and personal information, I guess, that was available. And that was used for data extortion, which is kind of different to data exfiltration, where someone just takes out the data and puts it out for money. They basically were letting the organization know that, hey, if you do not give me money, whatever the amount is, we would make it public. It's almost like threatening them like a goon would. That's what they were able to do with Claude Code. And I think the funniest thing was it kept referring to, and I'm sure we were talking about this, about the other one, that the North Korean one, which we'll talk about after.
Oh, yeah. But hold on, before you move, I just want to talk about the extortion and ransom thing one, which is the thing that seems pretty interesting about this is, like, by and large, a lot of these attackers sometimes aren't necessarily the brightest, right? And so what's pretty crazy about the report is, by using AI to build the strategy and the negotiation tactics between the attacker and the victim, and being able to say, hey, the best way to make use of this attack is through direct extortion or through, like ransomware, and then it goes and AI helps you write the message, tell you exactly how much you should ask for,
That's right.
what your demand is, what is the levels of things if you don't pay, and what's the escalation schedule if you should not pay, and how much damage you can do until they pay, and like giving all of the strategy. And so what's interesting is as someone who has sort of been through this scenario in real life, generally what we do, or what you should do in this scenario, is you go and if you're the victim, if you're at a company, you go and you hire these sort of ransomware, attack negotiators, right? Who are really good at what they do. And what they do is they come in, they set up the secure messaging system, and you have a conversation directly with the attacker. And the tactics that these people use are like, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to, the goal is to extract as much information from the attacker that you can without paying anything. That is the goal for the ransomware person. And
as in like the victim, you mean?
The victim's goal is to extract as much from their attacker as possible, meaning how much data do you actually have? What is your identity, right? Like, how long have you been in the system? Like, anything you can get. Your entire goal is to be a detective and extract as much information as possible without ever giving. And there's all these tactics that you use in order to do this.
And the proof of life thing as well, whether the data is actually legit.
Yeah, which is, by the way, a whole point of like, hey, I want to see how much proof of life. Do you send me all of it? Because then I know how much exactly where you were, where you're at. So then my security team can immediately go, oh, I know what system that came off of. Boom, go do forensics, right? And so what's really interesting is at least in our negotiation, they're not the brightest at doing this. So you have these really smart people that you hire who are all social engineering the attacker in order to extract this information. But now they're using AI to do this for them, which makes them super smart. And that's kind of scary.
Because I think I'll highly encourage people to look at the actual report, not just the article. But in that, towards the end of the case study, they actually had the script that was used where in 48 hours, a certain message goes out, a 72 hours, a certain message goes out. And right at the end, just before the case study ends, it says deadline hour specified. Do not test us. We came prepared. That's as a psychological tactic. Because the thing is, you would not even know you're not even talking to the real person. You're just talking to Claude Code in the background. There is actually absolutely no emotion there.
It's just up levels their intelligence, which actually goes down to then North Korean IT workers finding employment. I gotta do this quote that I was talking to you about before.
Find it. Actually, while you do that, I'll just give a quick context of this was basically North Korean remote workers were designing, I guess they were generating profit for the regime doing basically contract work across the internet. That's the TLDR gist of it, but there was a quote that stood out for you.
And getting hired. And so in this report, which was funny, this is the thing I was calling out to Ashish, here's the quote. Most concerning is the actor's apparent dependency on AI. They appear unable to perform basic technical tasks or professional communication without AI assistance. Using this capability to infiltrate high-paying engineering roles that are intended to fund North Korea's weapons program. This is another one. Okay, so I gotta say this. So hold on. Here it is. The most striking finding is the actor's complete dependency on AI to function in technical roles. These operators do not appear to be able to write code, debug problems, or even communicate professionally without Claude's assistance. Yet, they're successfully maintaining employment at Fortune 500 companies, passing technical interviews, and delivering work that satisfies their employers. Mm-hmm. This represents a new paradigm where technical competence is simulated rather than possessed.
Actually, someone we were joking about this the other day, and the question was, if you were a threat intel person, and you do find, say, North Korean people in your workforce who are doing a great job, probably a better job than the existing workforce, then you're in this bit of a dilemma whether do you get rid of them, but they're doing such a good job and probably are a cheaper resource compared to what you would have otherwise. As a company, do you choose to continue to fund North Korea while getting your work done?
You know, like,
Or
this is the thing. It's like, so you look at this as either two areas. Either the bar is so low
yeah,
that these people can continue to operate this well, or actually the bar is high enough, but with AI, these people can get the job done. And to a Fortune 500 company, who cares?
yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah.
you're getting the job done.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Your work is sufficient.
I mean, even the transcript of messages sent to Claude Code was funny as well. There's this thing where, what does this mean? So what does mean this? It's not even proper English. It's like, what does mean this? We had our first picnic of the season with a smiley face. And it's
Yeah.
like, and then there's an emoji that says, what does the above thing mean? With an emoji of two angular brackets. There's another one that I thought was funny, is like, how to use Outlook application, how to please revise my code, how to set up this project, how can I develop, how to
This
check
is
go installed. I'm like, I guess those sound like real things, and if you just follow them. But maybe to kind of bring it back to this one, I guess the most concerning one to what you were saying as a Fortune 500, the dilemma you're sitting with is whether, if you do detect a North Korean worker in your organization, do you get rid of them, or do you change your interview process because it's against your ethics or policy or whatever? I think that's the problem being created by here, by this particular use case study. Unless they're not trying to extort money, they're just basically helping companies do better jobs while funding their own, like everyone's in profit.
Yeah, but I mean, to the other extent, right, is, what they're saying here is they are generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually by getting these jobs. They are delivering actual effective work, and like, they're doing their job. Now, they could be also exfiltrating depending upon where they get jobs at, but they're also stating here that each operator can now maintain multiple concurrent positions, which have been impossible without AI assistance. And so my big question is, like, actually my prediction in this is, like, especially with Fortune 500 companies, generally there's some sort of background check that occurs, right? And so either there's two things happening, like the background check is not occurring, or the background check that they do is so simplistic that you can take any stolen SSN or something, and any very, very surface level identity theft can now pass to get employed by these identity checks, because these guys should not be able to get hired unless they're doing some pretty impressive or thorough identity theft, right? That occurs. So that means if this is continuing to happen, which will continue to happen, that companies, anyone who is doing identity checking, that you have to now go to their higher tier, more thorough for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, because you cannot continue, quote unquote, to do this per se, I would imagine. So I would think that these services should explode.
Actually, it's a good point, because every job that anyone technically gets hired for, there's, before you even get the job, there's technically a background check for your driving license, passport, some form of ID, government information, social security number. There's so many things that you kind of have to, I guess, pass on. And unless there's actually genuinely a gap on the other side, but people just collect information and they don't check it, because it's technically, in most scenarios, it's usually a third party. It's not someone inside the organization. It's usually a third party.
Yeah. And again, I think that usually there are probably tiers. They might say, for lower level workers, we don't need identity. Or if we do on these things, they're the very, very basic, which is take an SSN, make sure that there's no criminal record, right? Versus take the image, take the person, their identity, match to make sure that they are correct, look at their background, make sure it matches the background, what they're saying. Like, none of that happens. And so I could foresee here where, companies like Checker and others have to start offering a deeper identity background process, and they would make a ton of money, where Fortune 500s now have to put things in place to do these identity checks at a deeper level, right? Because you can't have this continue to happen.
Yeah. And I guess maybe to going on that same mitigation path, the first use case we spoke about where there was the person who's basically using vibe hacking, as we were calling it. I think, is there a mitigation there? I think we kind of went through what the thing was, but is because once you're impacted by it, you're already impacted. To your point, the only mitigation you have is use that opportunity to extract as much useful information you can to identify how A, proof of life that we were saying, and B, what systems potentially have been impacted, identify them and try and forensic. But the data is already being extorted. Then you're in
Yeah,
this.
yeah. At that point, what we're just talking about is fully automated ransomware negotiation tactics, right?
Yeah.
Which, of course, both the attacker and the victim will have to figure out. I mean, the only thing I could think of is actually, as the victim, I would try to prompt inject the attacker.
Yeah, once you realize, yeah,
Yeah.
well, the interesting thing, the reason I brought that up is also because in the UK, I think in the last few months, there's actually a bill passing where companies it would be illegal to pay ransom for ransomware kind of, and you have to declare. So there's something on the line, I can't remember the exact specifics of it, but essentially it would become illegal to pay ransom if there's a ransomware situation or whatever. But then the question is, people may choose to not declare it's a ransomware as well. How do
Oh
you
yeah.
you can't really go into a company and just verify a ransomware, which kind of also is a good segue into the next one, which is also a UK-based Ransomware-as-a-Service, which is, they're calling it RaaS. A UK-based threat actor was able to leverage Claude to develop, market, and distribute ransomware with an advanced evasion capability in the dark web forums.
Mhm.
For as low as $400 for ransomware DLL. It's almost, I think, if you were to look at these three scenarios, the injection point is still very traditional. Like, your network is still, anything which is exposed to the internet. That was the first one I can think of. The second one is the insider threat that we were talking about. The third one also seems in a similar context. It can go down the path of an external, like whatever your external resources are, or scam, or it's not that
It,
it's a different way of doing an existing security attack, is where I'm coming from.
yeah, I think actually what it does is, what AI allows you to do is lower the bar of expertise, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for example, when you're talking about ransomware, obviously, the way these things work is there are generally a set of very smart people who build ransomware frameworks and platforms.
Yeah.
And off of these platforms, all the script kiddies use them in order to encrypt and, do all their stuff and build their ransomware, and then they go and then deploy them, right? But there's actually very few suppliers of these really smart ransomware tech. And that has allowed, I think, on the defensive side, the ability to identify standard methods, signatures, and abilities to detect these kinds of frameworks in at least some degree. However, AI now allows the common person to develop their own version of this,
Yeah.
right? Like, for example, I'm reading this direct from the report. Most concerning is the actor's apparent dependency on AI. They appear unable to implement complex technical components or troubleshoot issues without AI assistance, yet are selling capable malware, right? And so what this means that, versus now what it used to be, let's just make up a number, there are 50 platform providers in the malware world. You can now have hundreds and thousands of malware providers, because each person is uniquely just using AI to generate their own versions of it, right?
Yeah.
Which also, I think, on the defensive side means signatures become much more difficult to create, way more randomizations of it. The capability of these things rises, and there's just so much customization, it becomes harder to be able to say what is the right method, what methodology is being used versus not.
Actually, it's kind of, we were talking about this on the episode we did with Jason Harix and Daniel Miesler, where the whole concept of script kiddie running a Metasploit was a joke that was running around for a while, where, hey, the difference between someone who's a script kiddie versus not, I guess the person who's a bit more experienced understands what happens at the end of the result from Metasploit. whereas the script really just running through it and go, hey, finds a few things, and I just want to copy paste a script that I can find. This is an interesting one because I could be listening to this interview and use that as information, just the information that it is possible to do this as a starting point for me to explain, or for me to ask Claude Code or OpenAI or whatever, and just say, hey, explain to me how, if I were to create a ransomware as a service, what would that require? What kind of skill set would I require for that? And how far can I go with it? What can you help me with this? And hey, you don't have to be a networking expert. You don't even have to think about this. You can be, hey, I'm kind of thinking, let's go for the financial services. Let's find the ones, which ones have the lowest security in financial services? Oh, the startups. Let's just go for that. You can just take that chain of thought and drag it all the way. And your AI would, that's a great idea. Let me find that for you. It's like, it would just keep going.
But then this then gets into, we should maybe discuss this at the end, but obviously Anthropic produced this report, and their mitigations are they are both identifying these types of techniques and tactics and are also removing accounts or banning this kind of behavior. And there are two ways at which these attackers are abusing Claude in order to do this. Obviously, the first is they are jailbreaking, right? Like there are plenty of ways to jailbreak even existing today Claude. And two, they are in some sense jailbreaking by the sense of saying that they are manipulating the system to say that they are active white hat security practitioners trying to do tests. And this is where, I think you and I have had many sort of themes around this in the past, but like, where is the line that gets drawn where, doing things for safety and control reasons, is now treating the people who use these models like kids versus where it isn't? Where is the line that you draw? Is it at, obviously there's a line that gets drawn on child pornography for generated imagery, right? Everyone can quote unquote agree on this. But then when you start getting into this, where I can use AI to do attacks against other systems, to the average person, they would say, of course you should you should monitor that, which, by the way, says another thing about privacy, right? Which this report clearly states we have no privacy in interacting with Anthropic, and probably any other model for that matter. But then it also says, well, hey, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who legitimately need to use AI to do exactly this. So then you have to get certificates, then you have to get permission from Anthropic in order to do this. Then does that reduce the amount of innovation that can then occur from people who are, just a kid in their bedroom wanting to come up with the new security tool, which, by the way, does happen a lot, by the way. And so now there's this very, very gray line around this. And so, like, again, we could probably talk about this.
Yeah, but I guess to add to another layer to that, it's the acceptance of AI usage across the defense has been slower as well. So that doesn't really help in this particular case, because as much as, to your point, we have read this report, there's a huge bias towards, it's a very Claude-focused report. In my mind, they're starting to position themselves as a service provider, which is why they're doing threat intel report, the same as Amazon does, same as Microsoft does. I'm hoping OpenAI and other people start doing it because, at least in my mind, yes, you're right, privacy may have lost its meaning a bit to an extent, but at least there's transparency in the misuse, so people are more aware of scenarios that they can look out for, because Microsoft does this as well. But in terms of what their researchers have found, I'm assuming they don't go through the logs of their customers. They look at what's happening and what's been reported to them. And actually, I haven't checked this, and maybe it's a good thing to fact check whether Claude or Anthropic actually provides a threat intel service to their customers, same as Microsoft and Amazon. Because if they do that, then someone's actively researching it. Maybe to your point, it's not a breach of privacy, it's just someone actively finding out someone's blog somewhere on the internet for this. But to your point about the gray area, I think there's something to be said about the fact that, yes, there is a need for this. But on the flip side, at Black Hat and across the board, I've had so many conversations about people not using enough AI in their work, in their day-to-day operations. It's almost like, what's going on? Why? I mean, on one side, you have these reports which are saying that, hey, attackers have started using it. start doing something about this. This is it. Here you go. Case studies, 10 case studies for you. But on the other side, when I talk to people in Fortune 500 and others, there are certain slithers of people who are heavy into AI, but a lot of them don't have AI usage, like to the point that 5% or 10% is AI usage in a lot of companies. And
Yeah, but
I don't know where this, like, where I mean, there's a question to be asked over. I think where I'm coming from this, there's a question to be asked on the other side as well, that what can we do to increase the adoption of AI so that we probably have a better answer and not be in this gray area? Because at the moment, I don't think we have enough data points.
well, like, just take a couple of these points. So let's take the first one. The first one is vibe coding attacks.
Yep.
Okay, so what does this mean, practically speaking? What this means, practically speaking, is that attackers are now getting the ability, value-wise for them, is to have a broader scope with deeper level of attacks, which is, hey, it used to be I could port scan everybody, and then I could, maybe run Metasploit if I do that on things that are vulnerable, and that's my extent. Now I can not just port scan people, I can automatically, reasonably do intelligent phishing. I can also reasonably, intelligently respond to those port scans using a variety of tools to do deeper exploitation, which means that low-hanging fruit in enterprises are now lower, right?
Yeah. That's
So
the benchmark. Yeah.
yeah. And the things that are higher are, and by the way, we've talked about this in all of our things. This is just proof that this is happening. So what should the enterprise do? Like, how are they going to use AI to help that problem? Because theoretically, I'm just going to take a stab. Love to have anyone argue with me, but there's only two things you can do in an enterprise. You can either, one, patch faster, right?
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, like hard in any
Impossible.
organization. Like for what, like this is a red tape people process problem. So
Yeah.
what's AI going to do to solve that? We haven't seen what that's going to be.
Yeah.
Or two, you have better detection methods, which by the way, I think people are working on. So we have AI SOC, we have these startup
Red team.
companies doing detection engineering, AI, so there is some aspect, but we're too early, right? Like there's no one is smart enough, capable enough, time resource enough to be able to say across our enterprises, you're going to now have smart engineers building custom AI solutions in enterprises. Like that's just not to stop these attacks. Like that's just not going to happen. And so then you can't do anything with AI.
And I guess maybe to add another layer to your thought there is we have not started producing AI native applications yet. We're still infusing AI into existing applications in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a scenario that we haven't even covered for because no one hasn't gotten to that point. We're doing agentic workflows. We haven't gotten to the point of beyond the detection and patching part. And maybe a good time to remind people of what Dan Lemieux had told us. Even if we get AGI, someone would not press that red button ever in the organization because we'll just be at that point where, going back to the report as well, maybe sharing this report is just a starting point for people to realize that we should probably start investing more time in it. But I'm with you. I don't see how anyone can argue with your two patching versus detection faster. At least the way AI market is going, we have continuous red teaming, the AI SOC market, the open source detection market for AI code being produced. So yeah, that all signals point to that at this particular point. But unfortunately, I don't think any of them, like maybe the the red teaming one kind of tackles the vibe hacking.
I mean, you could say, the AI red teaming companies are going to show you the level of vulnerabilities that at least the attackers will be able to see. That's probable, right? But then it goes, but if you ask any enterprise, the problem becomes, well, like I already know I have 1,000 vulnerabilities. My problem is fixing them. So who knows how you go with that? Yeah. But they even look at the North Korean hiring one. Okay, so they're using AI to simulate effective workers, which they're doing a great job at. And then all these companies are hiring them. The first question maybe, like we ask is, do they care? Because maybe,
but that's a similar question.
Like, as a CISO of a company, I would care about this. So then what do you do? Right? What do you do about this? The answer isn't necessary. Is the answer to use AI against their AI? Maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
The answer that we're doing today is we're saying we're just video. If you, one, don't allow remote work, only
Yeah.
allow in person. Two, do video calls with them and make them wave their hand in front of their face and look to see if they're reading off of a fucking prompt when you're doing it. But by the way, like when you're like a Fortune 500 company, the amount of employees that you're hiring and at the level of tier you're hiring, you can't enforce this, right? Whether is the person who you're interviewing using AI to answer your questions. It would be cool, maybe, since we're coming up with cool ideas, that you could have an AI thing look at the person and they can see whether they're reading or not when they're doing a video
Oh,
interview.
just with the eye movements, yes.
Yes, that's right, with the eye movement. Of course, there is AI already that you can install on your camera to make it so your eyes look at you without going to the reading.
Yeah,
But that should be easy to detect. Like, okay, that's clearly like an AI thing that's going on.
Actually, maybe, yeah, to your point, maybe that's the closest we can get. Because I don't know if you've heard of this company called Cluely.
Was it?
Cluely? Have you heard of this
No,
company?
absolutely.
So, it's a young kid, funny enough, basically Cluely. He's going viral on social media. Basically, what he's done is kind of what you were saying. He's basically helping salespeople interview people, use AI.
Oh, cheat. Yeah.
Yeah, cheat, basically. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
You heard of them?
Yeah, I have. I did hear about this before. Yes. Hey,
So
he took giving students the ability to cheat on interviews
that's right.
to now positioning it as sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, he didn't even have a product until like 3 months ago.
Right.
So
I
the
did
only
hear
thing
about
he had, I think he used Claude Code or OpenAI to vibe code his way for the first version that was
Yes.
used by students. And he's
Yes.
basically used that for one whole year before he
Yes.
got to the sales point of, hey, I can charge people money for this. I'm like, brilliant kid, all the power to him. But it kind of goes back to what you were saying.
Which, by the way, like I remember first reading that and I was like, good for that dude.
Yeah,
And everyone
yeah.
was hating on him. I was like, yes, this is so
No, it's the same. So there's a sense of envy, but I'm like, oh, dude, I'm like all for it. Like, it's a great disruptor, and probably he's early in his life to go ahead and do this as well. But bringing it back to what you were saying about reading and picking up people for what they're doing, I feel like this is obviously the identity side of what we're talking about. I think the report also had some of the fraudulent side of things as well. I think one of the cases around the whole MCP, like I think fraud as a market, one would have thought is very evolved. And it was bound for disruption in terms of what the fraud ecosystem would be, how it would be impacted. I mean, especially like things like synthetic identity was one that stood out for me, where maybe there is a link between synthetic identity and the North Korean workers on how you can get away with that.
There is. Remember when we brought a couple people on for we talked about our whole identity episode. Remember, right? Where I kind of like
with Adrian.
With Adrian, yes,
Big,
and
yeah.
from the what's the
identity company, which is the OpenAI.
It's the Tools for Humanity.
Yeah, Tools for Humanity. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Tools for Humanity and the Orb, right?
Yeah, Orb.
For WorldCoin.
Yeah.
And like this is like truly like Ashish, my big belief in this. Like this has to come.
Yep.
Like if WorldCoin were implemented and forced by companies, it would solve this problem. Right.
America, yes.
In the sense that there is one private key, quote unquote, to a human, in the ability to say synthetic identities don't necessarily, quote unquote, exist in that frame. It is tied to some human. Right. So therefore, I know. Now, whether that human is cheating or not, that is a different problem to solve. But like you can at least tie it to say this is not a synthetic identity.
Oh yeah. You give like at least a genuine source of truth for it. I think something that I find interesting about humans is that we're really good at finding loopholes, and the simplest of loopholes in this world. And you almost think, how is that even a thing? To your point about while the world was talking about how to use AI for, your job's going to be replaced. Basically the entire world is being threatened on their job being replaced by AI. The hackers on the other end, or the bad actors on the other end, are flipping the script and going, oh my God, my job is so much more easier now. I can use AI to do all this stuff that I could not do before. And people want to get rid of that. So it's almost like how you look at the perspective makes such a big difference in this particular thing for me. To your point about the identity piece, where we know what the problem is, but the acceptance of it would be harder, even though the government has, at least I believe the government is all for AI usage, but no one has built anything for AI ethics or AI Act. beyond the EU Act that exists. There's nothing in America at this point in time. Is that right? In terms of compliance or, I mean, there's the whole ISO 42001 or whatever they call it, but that's just a framework for if you provide AI services. That's not really security against these things. So I'm curious as to how this evolves, but I just wanted to go through. There was one for synthetic identity powered as a fraudulent one. There was a romance scam bot. Obviously, how different would be, say, your no-code malware development to the malware distribution campaign?
Well, there's just a lot of different points to all of these, in the sense that I think malware distribution campaign is all about sort of the ability to create phishing, social awareness, all of this kind of stuff, right?
The next one on that list is Chinese threat actors specifically targeting Vietnamese IP ranges. Credential harvesting using Hydra, Hashcat. So like they're not
all,
like,
I think, standard, like, okay, of course they're going to be using this. This is just
but
automation.
But I think the interesting part for me is that everything was done using Chinese communication, in Chinese language.
There is a no-code malware development campaign, which is Russian.
There you go. But now we are a multilingual world as well.
Developer, creating malware with advanced evasion capabilities.
So does that mean, it's an interesting one, because traditionally everyone has taken that as an advantage, that most developed, quote unquote, developed companies or Fortune 500 and all of that, they're all English speaking, English first. But then because of AI, whatever your language, doesn't really matter what it is. AI just translated it for you. If you are in one of those top, 100 plus languages around the world that have enough data points, you can basically translate your language into a malware or anything that you can obviously do.
Yeah, language doesn't matter. Yeah. Let me talk about this Russian one. So this guy developed advanced malware. And this guy, what they're saying is he clearly knew what he was doing. He was an advanced engineer himself, developed all this, amazing anti-analysis techniques. However, what's really interesting was that malware samples appeared on VirusTotal within 2 hours of Claude generating the code, with submissions from Russia, UK, and Ukraine indicating potential active deployment. So what's interesting about this is multiple things. One, how fast the guy deployed this thing. Claude generated the code, and somehow I guess it worked well enough that he deployed it within 2 hours of this thing being deployed. And actually, even more crazy about this sort of data point is that people, with all of his advanced anti-detection, anti-analysis techniques, also within technically speaking, you could say, let's say it took an hour or an hour and a half for him to deploy it. And then it took another 30 minutes for the victim to recognize it was doing something and then also upload it to VirusTotal.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. It's amazing, one, that he created this thing, deployed it within 2 hours, or actually 2 hours was the time that it got uploaded VirusTotal. So he deployed it immediately once Claude generated it. And then also the fact that that people recognized it, identified it, uploaded it to VirusTotal within that 2 hour time frame.
But I think what I'm also reading this, it's just fascinating, is it's basically, it was smart enough to have a Telegram bot infrastructure for command and control as well. So it's basically building infrastructure, building data exfiltration capabilities with screenshot functionality.
Yeah.
So it's not just like I'm just copy pasting data. I'm taking screenshots and stuff as well. And it can disguise malware itself as Zoom, a cryptocurrency trading tool on so primarily Windows based, because this person seems to be quite good at Windows internal knowledge as per the report. But it's an interesting one. Combine that with how much malware is already on the internet, and if you try and disguise it as popular ones, I'm not surprised this guy got that far, I guess. Because I think was it this one or the previous one where they were using social media campaigns, like sending GitHub and LinkedIn messages? Was that this one? I think I can't remember.
This also goes to this romance scam bot thing, which is just phishing and using that as a messaging technique, this is a no-brainer, obviously.
Yeah, primarily in Chinese as well, funny enough. I wonder, and it was a Telegram bot, the romance scam bot.
Yeah.
multimodal AI to support. I mean, we do live in a world of Tinder, I guess. You never really know the person. You keep talking to them, I imagine. So we're not far. Should probably, I think we should talk to someone from one of those organizations as well, because they would see a huge spike of people, like people who are not confident in speaking to the other, I guess, the other gender, just using a bot, but they're smart. So they use a bot for conversation. I was watching a movie, I think a Ben Affleck movie where he's autistic, and he figured
Yeah.
out a formula on what preferences girls had in small little towns in the US.
Oh yeah, yeah. I saw that movie too. It was hilarious.
Accounted too. And I'm like, and he said he just completely hacked the algorithm
Yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
then the moment they really talk to him, then like, oh my God, this guy is so weird. Like no one else got anything. I'm like, wow. So I wonder if that's not far from a romance board as well. But hopefully people use good things.
No, you
Okay.
don't have to, because you could just use HeyGen, create your own video avatar of whatever person you want, and then have it just real time talk to the person over video calls.
And never see them in person.
Yeah, never see them in person.
That'll be a great relationship.
I mean, we're not even like a couple years out from that. Can you imagine what this is going to look like in 2 years from now?
What was that movie where the person was talking to the guy who does Joker, and he was talking to a Siri version and basically gets addicted to it? I don't know. It's like a very colorful movie, but this movie, I can't remember the name
Oh,
of
her.
her. Yeah, but there's this particular scene, and I haven't seen the movie, but there was this scene floating around everywhere when the first time I think ChatGPT went down for a few minutes. And the scene is primarily this guy's in his office talking to whatever her is. She just basically disappears. And this guy goes into panic mode as if, I don't know, a family member died. He's running the streets, he's tripping over staircases, trying to go back home because the home is where the main server is, or whatever the thing was. And as soon as he's about to enter the train station, it just comes back online as if nothing has happened. And it's like, hey, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. Oh, sorry for panicking you. And I'm like, wow, are we too far from that? I mean, I'm saying it's a very grim future, but hopefully we don't get the romance bot remind me of that.
I'm
So
pretty sure we're already in that world, man, where you have psychological dependencies on AI and its ability. Like all of that, I think is very, very true today.
it
Right.
probably doesn't help when OpenAI releases services that are in the health space. And like now I think they have released also job and certification as well. They have a consulting service, and I feel like they're testing the market for which service would have the most adoption, and then basically just release a product in that particular space. But bring it, yeah, because they have so much data set. Why not just use it to figure out? Because everything seems to be releasing next year. They could do the Google Cloud thing to call it beta and see how many people respond, how many people sign up. So I don't know. I think it'll be fun for them. But bringing it back to the report, carding store. We only have one left, which is the carding store powered by AI.
Yeah, which to me is just using AI to help you scale and write better software. It just happens to be for illegal purposes.
And it's in
So,
Spanish speaking. It was a Spanish speaking actor.
yeah,
We're going
again,
global. We have Spanish,
language.
Chinese, Russian,
Yeah.
and only a few, or one British guy with the UK. So we're definitely going global in terms of the geographies we've covered. So I guess maybe to kind of sum it up, what's your big takeaway based on all of this? I'm curious. Any top two things that come to mind?
I think the first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is we knew this was coming.
Yeah,
I mean, we've talked about it for a couple years, actually. So the thing that's the most surprising is, frankly, that it just like any adoption for criminals, it takes time, right? So it's now been a couple years, and the things that we knew was coming are now here. The other thing that I feel is these are very individualized types of reports. They feel very singular in their nature. This is not happening at any real scale yet, I feel. Like, I think that, mine is sort of the North Korean, where they mentioned tons and tons of incidents of this happening. A large part of the report feels very singular, right? One actor or a couple threat actors or these types of things, versus this normally in 2 years will probably be done more like Verizon's breach report, and it'll be done based on stats. Like, hey, we had, like there are over 35,000 people doing this kind of attack using our service. Or
even the volume is not there at the moment.
the volume is not there. Yeah. So we're still very, very early.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the early adopters of doing this. And the thing that, we don't think too much about is it's not about the new threats that come from AI. It's just about the professionalism and scalability of existing threats that come from AI. You can now build, sort of the credit card thing, which is you can now build real enterprise software
Yeah.
at which I think a lot of these attackers weren't necessarily, let's say, well versed in. But the commoner, the script kiddie, can now build really good, reliable scaling software
Yeah.
done with true great automation at scale. And I think like that is something I'm not sure. I think many of us are focused on the new kinds of attacks that come versus just, oh, the level of sophistication of the existing, the reliability, the scalability of the existing is good.
I think for me, one thing that stood out over here, I mean, I agree on the first point on the like the specific things that have come out of the report. One thing which is probably a relief and a surprise here, that I wonder if given the opportunity, some of these people would have gone for, even though they don't know much about the systems, but if they would have been smart enough to go down the path of finding business logic flaws and not just like a lot of them are brute forcing a VPN, sending a phishing email, I'm sending GitHub or LinkedIn requests and all of that, which is, and to your point, it could be low stakes. A lot of people can do a lot of security awareness around it. But to me, I guess if they start cracking into that, and this does not make me feel that they are far from it. It just required the person to be motivated enough to go, I wonder what else can I do? What is
Yeah.
because they probably did not even understand, like, because they never worked in enterprise or in a large company, they didn't even realize that, hey, there could be interconnected systems on this that I could
Yeah.
go into. And I think that's where I feel the real, quote unquote, the real threat is. And to your point, that's when maybe people start feeling, hey, this is something much more. The second thing that and I'm going to go back to the North Korean one, it's a great example. And maybe because I'm seeing a lot of use cases there, a lot of CISOs that I've spoken to, they're finding that a lot of AI usage is quite low within the organization. If people, and no disrespect to people from North Korea, please don't hurt me, but I think the idea behind, you don't even need to understand the language, but you can still do a great job just by using Claude. To me, it sounds like, hey, is there any process that is around you that you can use to integrate with Claude and perhaps use that as a starting point for how can I start using AI, what my AI use cases are, and build something like this for yourself? I think we've been doing this as custom applications already in a lot of organizations. I think a few examples of this have existed for years where people may have a great theme provider, but they still have to have internal metrics for what's a high, low, medium, what's a false positive because it's not applicable to me, but this big theme provider thinks that's really high, very high for me. We've done that before, but why not use, like, almost abstract that layer even more? I think that's what, to me, this is the hope for that is possible today.
Yeah. There's the aspect of basically saying, hey, if North Korean people who cannot speak English and know nothing about technology can actually be contributing reliable, high-tech software engineers
Yeah.
just using AI,
Yeah.
we are clearly not maximizing our capabilities with it.
100%. 100%. I'm like, what is going on? Is that, I guess we just don't have the motivation. We just have the safety net.
And then there's another aspect that I'm trying to work on, and maybe others, which is if they can elevate themselves to that level, what can you and I, as individuals, we should be able to elevate ourselves up a couple notches too, just
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
AI. And how
Yeah.
are we doing that? Right.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely keen to kind of do some use cases for this as well, because I'm curious. I've spoken to a few people here who have used AI within their teams and building internal threat intel systems to have that. And that's why I had the example of the abstraction one, because I'm like, oh my god, you guys are doing this, but there are very few examples of it, and most people are trying to change their angry email into a non-angry email. I'm going, that is not. It's like, you know how when YouTube or internet was invented, people are just going more for cat memes and dog memes.
Yeah.
Like, this is literally the same kind of usage of AI. If I feel.
I can tell you that I think a lot of that does exist, but for example, like I have a portfolio company
Yep.
that is doing some mind-blowing things in detection engineering,
Mm-hmm.
like things that are like this was impossible a year ago,
Yeah.
2 years ago. There's no way we would be able to do this kind of stuff. And so I do think this technology is there. It's being created right now.
Yeah.
And
We're
of
still
course,
quite early.
if you're doing it, you're going to start up, and you're probably in stealth a bit right now.
Yeah. But do you also feel that, and I think maybe this is, I don't want to go too off topic, but I think maybe this is a topic we should talk about in terms of the use of AI for security teams within organizations, within enterprise, in terms of how they, like we've obviously spoken a lot about security for AI as a theme for a while. We haven't not gone into the AI for security part. And I want, because that is also, what we are saying is there's potentially a gap there that just needs to be filled in some way or shape or form. And we did the whole episode on vibe coding.
Yeah.
And maybe some more use cases around that to what you said. Maybe it's from the portfolio companies you're working with what are they doing, which you can bring over to other people, and how they can use that as a, because clearly many people do understand they're not going to build an AI product. Whereas,
yeah. I mean, this is top of mind. Actually, this week, I'm holding an invite-only thing for very forward-thinking CISOs who are using AI. And the exact topic is, this is a dinner event that I'm doing. The exact topic is practical, real-world AI you're implementing right now inside of an enterprise.
Yep. I would love to. Yeah, I would love to hear your feedback from that particular one, because I'm definitely curious as to where and how. Because I think there are not many examples being spoken about. I'm trying to fill that gap as well. So I think that would be great insight for people to even know what some companies are doing. Because at this point in time, no one's talking openly about this.
Yeah. On the next episode, we'll dump on that dinner.
Perfect. All right. So maybe that's the conclusion of this episode as well. Then that, hey, we understand the gaps. We've shared the top few takeaways from the report, but people should definitely check out the report. And hopefully OpenAI and others start building, because I imagine Amazon, Microsoft can come up with the reports as well. They have a threat research team. They're building or giving capabilities for AI processes. So hopefully they do as well. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you for watching or listening to that episode of AI Security Podcast. This was brought to you by techriot.io. If you want to hear or watch more episodes of AI Security, check that out on aisecuritypodcast.com. And in case you're interested in learning more about cloud security, you should check out a sister podcast called Cloud Security Podcast, which is available on cloudsecuritypodcast.tv. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.